Today, we are going to do something, well, something kind of impossible. We are going to take the entire, almost unimaginable history of our planet and tell it as a single story. So, you ready? Let's do this. Just look at that number, 4.6 billion years. That is an immense, almost incomprehensible amount of time. That's the story of our home. From a ball of molten rock to the world of oceans, forests, and cities we know today. Everything is in that number, right? I mean, where do you even start? Well, we're going to break it down. We'll tell this story in 5 acts, starting at the very, very beginning, with an Earth that was violent, alien, and utterly unrecognizable. So, Act 1, the violent dawn. Forget everything you think you know about Earth. If you could somehow go back to this time, the Archean eon, you wouldn't even recognize it. Honestly, you'd think you'd landed on Venus or something. It was a completely different world. And just check out the air. The atmosphere back then was this hot, thick, toxic soup of methane, ammonia, and other gases. We call it a reducing environment, which sounds technical, but it just means it was the perfect chemical stew for life to get started. But for us, we wouldn't last a second. Volcanoes were erupting everywhere. And because there was no oxygen, there was no ozone layer, nothing to stop the sun's searing UV radiation from blasting the surface. And yet, somehow, in all that chaos, the spark. Life began. Now, how did that happen? Well, one of the leading ideas is the RNA world hypothesis. Think of RNA as DNA's scrappy, simpler little cousin. The theory goes that RNA was the original blueprint for life, able to store information and get chemical reactions going long before the more stable, more complex DNA system we all know today took over. And let me tell you, life's early days were brutal. We have hints of life going back maybe 4.1 billion years. But right after it got started, the whole solar system turned into a shooting gallery. It's called the Late Heavy Bombardment, and the planet was just pummeled by asteroids. But somehow, life held on. And the first real undisputed fossils we find, from about 3.5 billion years ago, are these incredible things called stromatolites. They're basically ancient apartment buildings, built layer by slimy layer by bacteria. So we're moving into Act 2, Life Changes Everything. Because these stromatolites, they might just look like weird lumps of rock, but the tiny organisms that built them, bacteria called cyanobacteria, were about to become the single most powerful force of change in our planet's history. They were the world changers. See, these tiny bacteria figured out an amazing new trick. It's called photosynthesis. They learned how to eat sunlight. Brilliant, right? Well, there was a catch. A big one. Their exhaust, the waste product they released, was a corrosive, toxic poison that was deadly to almost every other living thing on the planet at the time. And that deadly waste product, it was oxygen. As these bacteria pumped out more and more of it, they triggered the planet's first ever pollution crisis, a global catastrophe. It poisoned all the other life forms. It literally made the planet rust. All that iron you see in the ground, that's what that is. And by changing the atmosphere, it plunged the Earth into a global ice age, what we call a snowball Earth. I mean, it is just a wild paradox. The very thing that you and I need to breathe, oxygen, almost wiped out all life on Earth before it ever really got going. Life basically created its own apocalypse, and it just barely scraped by. But sometimes crisis leads to incredible innovation. And what happened next was maybe the single most important lucky break in history. Some ancient cell swallowed another, smaller bacterium that could actually use the toxic oxygen. But instead of digesting it, it put it to work. That little bacterium became the mitochondria, the power plant that lives inside the cells of all complex life. That one weird event is why we're here, why every plant, animal, and fungus exists. Okay, let's fast forward a couple of billion years. Yes, billion with a B. Life's been kind of coasting, but now we hit Act 3, and this one's a real roller coaster. A sudden, incredible burst of creativity, followed by the closest thing to total annihilation the planet has ever seen. First up, the good part, the Cambrian explosion. Think of it as biology's Big Bang. With more oxygen in the air, a new high-energy lifestyle became possible, hunting. And the second animals started trying to eat each other, this insane evolutionary arms race kicked off. Skeletons, shells, claws, eyes. In a geological blink, almost every major animal blueprint that exists today just appeared out of nowhere. Now, long after that explosion, but still way before the dinosaurs, Earth was dominated by creatures like this one, Dimetrodon. And here's a fantastic little bit of trivia for you. It looks like a giant lizard, right? Well, it's not. It's actually part of a group called synapsids, which means that creature is more closely related to you and me than it is to a T-Rex. Our family tree is weird. So this Permian world was thriving. It was full of these strange and wonderful creatures. But their time was running out because they were about to face the single greatest catastrophe in the history of life. A killer so effective, it makes the asteroid that got the dinosaurs look like a minor inconvenience. So what did it? Geologists have a whole list of suspects. The prime culprit is a series of volcanic eruptions in Siberia, so massive they're almost impossible to even picture. That would have triggered runaway global warming and acid rain. But the truly terrifying idea is what they call the Murder on the Orient Express hypothesis. It wasn't just one killer. It was everything going wrong, all at the same time. But here's the thing about mass extinctions. They're also massive opportunities. They hit the global reset button. And climbing out of the ashes of the Great Dying, a new dynasty of reptiles was ready to take over and build an empire that would last for over 150 million years. Welcome to Act 4, the Reign of the Dinosaurs. And man, what a reign it was. It spans 3 distinct ages. The Triassic, where they got their start on the giant supercontinent Pangaea. Then you have the Jurassic, the Age of Giants, your Brachiosaurus, your Allosaurus. And finally, the Cretaceous, where the world starts to look more like our own, with flowering plants, separate continents, and of course, the king himself, T-Rex. Let's just pause on that number for a second. 150 million years. That's how long they were on top, unchallenged. They were the ultimate success story. It must have seemed like their empire would last forever. So what on earth could possibly stop them? A bad day. A very, very bad day. A rock the size of a mountain came screaming out of space and hit the planet with the force of billions of nuclear bombs. And in that one moment, the party was over. For every single dinosaur that wasn't a bird, that was it. Game over. And once again, an ending was a new beginning. With the giants gone, the world was suddenly wide open. And who was there, hiding in the rubble, ready to step into the light? Our ancestors, the mammals. And so begins our final act, our fleeting moment. And boy, did they take over. This next era, the Cenozoic, is truly the age of mammals. They just exploded in diversity, filling every role the dinosaurs left behind. You get primates in the trees, true predators like cats and dogs, even mammals like whales heading back into the ocean. And get this, the simple evolution of grass created vast new prairies, driving the evolution of all the grazers we see today. But let's get some perspective. Just look at this timeline of the last 65 million years. Mammals have ruled this entire time. Our ancestors started walking upright over 5 million years ago. But modern humans, people like us, about 200,000 years. See that tiny, paper-thin sliver at the very end? That's us, all of recorded history. In the grand story of our planet, we are barely a blip. And yet, for such a tiny blip, we've sure made a lot of noise. In our brief moment on stage, we've fundamentally altered the climate, the oceans, the land itself. So much so that many scientists say we've kicked off a new geological age, the Anthropocene, the age of humans. So that leaves us with a pretty heavy question, doesn't it? After 4.6 billion years and 5 apocalyptic mass extinctions, is our fleeting moment on Earth the one that triggers the 6th?